her baby. And the bus driver says, "Oh, that is the ugliest baby I have ever seen." So the woman goes to the back of the bus. She is just distraught and very upset and very mad. This man sitting next to her said, "What's wrong?" She said, "Well, that driver just insulted me." The man says, "You go up there and you tell him off." "Well, go on, I'll hold that monkey for you." Today, Curtis was a little slow, he just got it. Today is National Selfie Day, and I'm not even going to tell you what it is, but you know what it is, so indulge me.
Okay.
Everybody smile.
National Selfie.
Thank you. So today, I don't see a piano, so we will say, oh look, everybody's getting on the bandwagon here. Today, there's no piano, so we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated, and David Beck is going to do the Rotary Minute for us today.
Thank you, President Grace. We often talk about giving the gift of Rotary when you invite someone to be a Rotary member, and it truly is a gift and enriches your life. I want to talk about another aspect of Rotary that's also a gift, and that's being a host family for a Rotary Youth Exchange student. You not only get to participate and get to know an exceptional kid from a foreign country and witness a life-changing experience for them, but you also gain a new son or daughter. It's truly a very rewarding, although not easy, experience. It's not for everybody, but almost anybody can do it. You don't have to be have kids in high school. You can have younger kids, you can have no kids, you can be empty nester, you can be a gay family. Rotary is very open to that, and lots of people can make good host families. So this year, starting August 7th, we are sponsoring Sophie from Austria, who will be attending Topeka High. She has her first host family. Rotary likes to have 2 or 3 host families. So the opportunity is to be Sophie's second host family, starting around Christmas time through the end of the year. So if you're interested, or you think you know somebody who would be interested, just let me know. You don't have to be a Rotarian either to do that. So if you know some people who you think would be good at that, it's a very rewarding experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Katie Brown will do our guest introductions today.
When I introduce your name, please stand up and remain standing. Can you hear me now? Okay, our first guest is Marty Reisen with Mice Hauser. She's a guest of David Beck, and she is a prospective member.
Hi, Marty. Hi, everybody.
Our next guest is David Linderman. He's an accountant with Azura, and he's a guest of Cody Fredrickson. He is also a prospective member. Then we have Dr. Mark Horta. He is a chiropractor. He is a guest of Grant Glenn, and he is a prospective member.
Hi, Mark.
We have Henry McClure with Henry McClure Real Estate. He is also a guest of Grant Glenn.
Hi.
We have Charlotte McCollough. You may be able to guess whose guest she is, Jim McCollough.
Hi, Charlotte.
And we have Kinsley Searles. She is an intern at Zimmerman and Zimmerman and a guest of Angel Zimmerman.
Hi, Kinsley.
Thank you all for joining us.
We are always thrilled to see guests, and we're so glad you're with us today. This month's featured charity goes right along with what David was talking about, because all of our donations for this month are supporting our outbound Rotary Youth Exchange student, Zion Williams, and I know a lot of you have seen her, so I really hope you'll be generous in your support of her, because it does take a little bit of extra money, and she is very much worth it to all of us. Today, our Rotary International toast goes to the Rotary Club of Nicosia, Cyprus. This club was chartered in 1938. Currently, they have 72 members, and their president is Dikran Uzunian. So let's raise your glasses in a toast to the Rotary Club of Nicosia, Cyprus. Hear, hear. We have 3 proposed new member announcements, and all of these are in the family membership category, so we're so glad we did this and made it available to people. The first is Orion Jordan, who is Carol Jordan's husband, and I know she's here. I know Orion could not come today. Allison DeGroff, and you can imagine who she goes with, and I don't think she's here today either. And Lynette Jobeck, who's David's wife. So we're thrilled to offer their names as new members. We have a red badge presentation today, and Susan Alexander, if you will please come up here. Susan is becoming a family member with Lee Morris, and she asked me to clarify that she is a lecturer in education at Washburn University, and Lee calls it something else. So Susan, we are very, very pleased to have you as a member of our club, and we are presenting you with your red badge. And we ask that you wear this with pride, and when you come to an orientation in the near future, you'll find out how to turn that into a blue badge, and it's not hard, it's just a matter of doing some things to get you engaged. So you are now a member of Rotary International, our club. You are welcome at any Rotary event, so we're very, very pleased to have you.
Thank you.
Now you see some colorful things up here on the stage, and many of you came to our celebration banquet last Thursday, and I'm so glad that you came, and it was really so much fun. There were a number of people who were not able to come, but I did want to announce those people, what they have done for me personally and for our club this year, and at least to be able to tell you what the awards they got were. First of all, we had a second winner of the Rotary Pulitzer Prize Award for writing our grants, and that's Glenda Du Bois, and I do not see her today. A second prize for the Impossible Dream Award for doing all of the work that it takes to make the Rotary Freedom Festival the success that I know it's going to be, and that will go to Carol Wheeler. Jane McCollough is sitting here someplace. All of the socials that we have had this year have been so much fun, and Jane has been responsible for making sure that those happen. So, Jane, I hope this isn't pejorative, but you get the Party Girl Award. Someone never lets me start the meetings until I get the high sign. That would be Dave Heineman. And so he gets the "Okay, you can start now, Grace" award. He almost didn't get it because he was not paying attention today. And you'll know who this is. Last October, we raised a tremendous amount of money for Polio Plus, and Sam Karkoff was greatly responsible for the energy for that. Sam's sitting right back there, and he is getting awarded the "You Will Donate" award. So thank you, Sam. And this person could not be here today, and this was all behind the scenes, but this person has helped me so much and been so supportive. And Dusty Wagoner gets the "I Got Your Back, Grace" award. He said that so many times. He was so helpful. And 2 people who were so responsible for everything that, and Lee Morris is the third actually, that went on with the Interact Club at Highland Park and all that we have done to help those kids and will continue to help them. That award is called the There Is No Limit to What We Can Do Award, and that is really the case. So thank you all for the tremendous help that you've given me. And you can pick up your awards at the end of the meeting today. Val told me that we have some Rotary t-shirts. For those of you who do not have your t-shirts, we have XL and mediums at the back. And if that's your size and you don't have a t-shirt, if you would pick one up today, that would be great. We'll have a whole bunch more sizes next week at the meeting or at the Freedom Festival itself. So everybody gets a Rotary t-shirt. So I think I have covered everything, and we will begin our program, and Joan Wagner will announce our, introduce our program today.
Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our own Rotarian, Jim McCollough. Jim is someone that I've known for quite a while. He was 20 years as the senior pastor at First Christian Church. 8 years ago, he decided to go to work for the Center for Peace and Justice. And he has brought an energy, a vision, and a dedication to that work that has caused us to grow by leaps and bounds, to increase the scope of our programming, and to make a significant difference in the lives of people and in the community as a whole. He's going to talk to you a little today about the program that Rotary is funding. But I want to also mention that recently he started a new section or task force on gun violence and looking at what can we do about violence in the community. And those are significant problems. And it goes to the fact that Jim is a problem solver. He finds a community need, sees a way to put together a group of concerned people through the Center for Peace and Justice and attack that problem and make progress on it. He meets regularly with clergy. He meets regularly with a variety of folks throughout the community, and the membership and the scope of programming in the center has increased dramatically. In addition to that, he only works part-time. He serves as a pastor at a little Holton church for 1 day a week. So he's busy. This man came to us from Polo, Missouri. He went to school at Culver Stockton College. He has a master's from St. Paul's Theology and a doctorate in theology from San Francisco Theology School. I'd like for you to join me in welcoming Rotarian Jim McCollough.
Wow, what an honor to be introduced like that by Joan Wagner. I had such deep respect for her. The Peace Center gave her an award at our peace party a couple of years ago. And the next morning I called her and I said, Joan, we really need you on our board of directors. Would you consider? Yes, she said, just like that. I caught her just at the right time. So what a tremendous asset Joan has been to our board, so I thank you. I have been given the opportunity to talk to you today about our peace project that Rotary, Downtown Rotary Foundation has made possible through your gifting, through your grant to us of $20,000 for the past 2 years in a row, so $40,000 that has been given to the Peace Center over these past 2 fiscal periods. And I could talk to you for a couple of hours, but something tells me that y'all be leaving before I got done if I did that. I really had to think hard about how to go about doing this. We're going to have a panel discussion here in just a minute from people from Topeka High, and I will introduce them. But I want to begin because we have a number of Rotarians who have been involved in this project. So I want to begin just by asking those of you who have been involved in any way in our restorative justice, our youth mediation, victim offender mediation, or peace camp. If you've helped us with any of those programs, would you just please stand and let us recognize you and thank you, because it's a good thing. And there are several others that are not here today. So I thank you for the opportunity to talk with you about the implementation of the model for conflict resolution in our Shawnee County schools. Through our collaboration with the Kansas Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, otherwise known as KIPCOR, at Bethel College in Newton, we have trained 61 public educators to implement restorative justice practices in their schools. 61 teachers / principals, educators, all by funding from Rotary. Incredible. Additionally, we've provided a peace camp for the past 2 years with 30 to 35 kids each year, and my program director has told me we can't receive more registrations because we're full. We have 50 kids, so we're thrilled about that. We will be talking to them about bully prevention and what it means to be what you do as a bystander, what you do as a victim, or what you do in any capacity around that whole thing. So, thirdly, the Rotary grant made it possible for us to reinstitute our juvenile victim offender mediation program, which had come to a standstill as a result of a late in the session, legislative session in 2016, because of a bill that was passed that threw everything kind of up in the air. With the funding that we received from Rotary, we re-employed Lindsay Anderson, our mediation director, who immediately went to work searching for more money and got it. $70,000 that came to us in December of 2017. So you see, it took over a year of just working to get that, and we could not have done that without funding from Rotary to put her back on staff to just go to work looking for this, and we got it. As a result, we will move into the future with substantive funding to continue working with the Kansas Attorney General to provide mediation to kids who've made a mistake and who would otherwise have a permanent criminal record were it not for the fact that you have funded us in a way that we can mediate with kids and help them through their problem. So the program's continuation is ensured through the end of 2020 at this point. Again, we couldn't have done it without you. In a very quick summary, here's how we spent the $20,000. We spent $20 in the first hour or less. The $20,000 from July 17 through July 18. Listen carefully. Peace Camp 2017, $1,614. That was for supplies, food. We feed the kids 5 days, breakfast and lunch, advertising, and we took them on a field trip. That happened because of you. Restorative justice, training of public school educators, trainer travel expenses, meals, serving during the 20s, during the training and supplies, $17,650. 2 training sessions. Thirdly, reemploying our director of mediation, Lindsay Anderson. That was $14,250. So as you can tell, we spent a lot more than the $20,000 from Rotary, but that should make you feel good because it shows you that we've worked hard to get other funding besides just what Rotary has provided for us. We're not totally dependent. There's so many stories that we could tell you today about the outcomes that have resulted from these programs that Rotary funded. But we can't begin to do that in the time we've been allotted. In addition to the 17 public schools, and I'm going to forward this. That's what P stands for. And there's the schools, and I'm just lifting them up to you so you can kind of look at them. These are the ones who have received staff training. And I can tell you how the model has been implemented at the high school that is located inside the Topeka Juvenile Correctional Facility. Regina Platt is the refocus coordinator at the high school, and I have a written report from her that I would be happy to share with anyone who wants to know more about what they're doing. I could tell you about how Nancy Kelly, Nancy, would you stand up? Nancy is one of our trainees, and Nancy has worked closely with Topeka High in doing restorative justice practices. Thank you. Give her a hand. She's worked really hard for us. But she has also been invited to train all of the staff at Boys and Girls Club, something like 80 people, is that right, Nancy?
80 in Topeka.
In Topeka. And the state convention is coming, and you've been asked to do a training or talk to them about restorative justice there. What I see about restorative justice is it's just ballooning and it's just exploding, the idea. And it's not just for schools, it's for communities. It could be for law enforcement. It could be for, there's so many ways that this could be used. If we had the funding to continue on, we could really do a lot with this. So, I have asked Rebecca Morrissey, principal of Topeka High, and 2 of her teachers and 1 of her students to share about how this model has impacted lives at their school. As I said, I could have had other schools here, but Rebecca is on our board of directors now. And so we're excited about that as well. And so I asked her, and she brought with her today Richard Boljak, who's currently a special education teacher and co-teaches in social studies. He is the father of Chloe, who is also here. Chloe, hold up your hand. And Chloe Hickson is will be a senior and participated in restorative practices circles at school 2 different times. And Jennifer Hickson, also a special education teacher who co-teaches in language arts, has participated in restorative practices circles as a teacher and a parent. So, Rebecca and your team over there, I'm going to turn it over to you. Just get the microphone up close and talk.
Check. There we are. Well, I'm very excited to be back again and see a lot of familiar faces from a few weeks ago. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking myself. I want you to have an opportunity to hear from people who have participated, but I did share a few stories last time. Chloe will get to share what she's comfortable sharing, and I've told her that. But she did participate as a student who, in the past, was involved in some things that she would have simply been a victim with no voice, and there would have been punishment to the other party, and that would have been the end of it. So it was an experience to be able to do that, but it was because Richard is the teacher who was bumped sideways by a student and chose to participate in this process with that young man. And then Ms. Hickson has participated as a teacher, but she also participated as a mother in Chloe's circle. So I'm just going to turn it over to them a little and let them say a couple of words if they're comfortable, and if not, just ask some questions for us and we'll answer questions for you. Because it is an amazing process, and you heard me say before, restorative practices are the first thing I've seen in 35 years in this business that allows me to hold students to very high standards behaviorally, but do it in a manner that is caring, loving, and teaching behavior rather than punishing people into doing something they don't know how to do. It truly supports them, holds them accountable. It's tougher, but it does it in a way that feels caring. It's the way I would treat my children. I treated my children when I raised them. So it's just an amazing process. I will let them each say a few words if they're comfortable.
So I teach history, and I've done it for about 15 years. And in the past, when someone, let's say, had an infraction, they get a discipline referral or whatever, the expectation had always been that that student would just, depending upon the severity, they'd either get an in-school suspension or out of school. And with restorative practices, or let me back up. So then that student is out for, let's say, a day or 2 of school, and when they come back, they're upset, they're mad at me because it was as a result of something they had done to me that caused them to be suspended. But with restorative practices, we sat down as a group, as a team, to say, okay, what was the result? Why? What was it that caused you to become upset? How do you think that made Mr. Boljak feel when you bumped him and, you know, on your way out the door? How does that play? And in this case, he got to hear me. I got to hear what he had to say. So then that one day when he did return to my classroom, we kind of had a common understanding of how that made me feel, how he felt, and different other things. And one thing about it is that people say, well, restorative practices takes away any kind of punishment. That student wouldn't have received any punishment. But in the end, when you step back and take a look at it, he spent, I think, a day or 2 in in-school suspension. He still served his, what one might say, punishment, But before he was able to return to the room, we had to sit down and have that conversation that said a series of questions to try to work out what differences we had. And then once he did return, you know, I didn't harbor a grudge towards him. He wasn't upset with me. He understood that, you know, there's consequences for what you do, but it's the idea that you sit down, you have that conversation, and it isn't just me and him. There's Nancy Kelly is also a part of that mediation. Just other people that come into the room that can contribute to help work out whatever differences we had. So that would be my experience. I've had others, but and for the sake of time, and I'm turn it over to Chloe.
So I have participated in 2 restorative circles, and those restorative circles have really helped me because I was able to get my voice out, and I actually felt like I was being heard and they were listening to me. And I feel that if I hadn't participated in those, nothing would have really changed. And I feel as though I really helped change those people's behaviors and help the school overall. Yeah, they were pretty hard, and I feel as though I definitely have become a better person, and those people have become a better person because of them. And also just knowing that I had support and all the people that I've had helped the circle take place, and just knowing that people were actually wanting me to get my voice out and to just, I don't know, but yeah, I think that the circle has really helped our school, and really just if the circle had not have happened, then there really wouldn't have been such a change, as in like what Richard was saying. People would have just been punished for it and not really seen how it affected others, and I think it really helped other people know how their actions were actually affecting other people.
Without getting too specific, Chloe first went to Washburn Rural, and she had trouble with some boys, and so our solution was to get her out of that school and bring her to Topeka High. And then at Topeka High, when she had trouble with boys, Richard and I are like, oh my gosh, we need to get her out of here and send her to another school. And then we kind of realized that the whole, you know, running from problems doesn't ever really fix anything. And so I was really glad to have the practice of restorative circles, because instead of running from a situation, you know, she was able to feel that she had power, and it truly, I think, did make a difference in the lives of all of the people involved, so that hopefully behaviors change rather than it happening again to someone else. So I also, toward the end of the year, I got to participate. One of my students had punched another student, and I felt like those 2 girls getting to sit down and talk about what had happened was so much better than if they had just both been suspended and come back to school and then had all of the same issues that never got resolved. You know, the punitive consequences might make it so it didn't happen again, but I just think it was so much better that they could sit and hear each other. And it's a very painful, Ms. Kelly was in charge of that circle, but it's a very painful process to have to sit with someone that you've you know, hurt in that way, and talk about how they feel and how you feel and how it all came about. And I think it's just really powerful. So I've just been really glad to be a part of the restorative circles.
Do you have questions? And I know, Jim, if we can run a, I can do it.
Could you please explain more specifically how the process works from the time the incident occurs
Sure.
till it's completed?
It depends a lot. When I first started this, most of our suspensions at Eisenhower, and if you were here before, you heard the numbers, but I'll give them quickly. We had about 430 kids when I got there, 600 when I left in 5 years, so you need to know the increase because it's even more powerful. That first year we had 61 fights of our suspensions. By the end we had 14. And over that time we not only reduced punitive, meaning out of school suspensions, but we removed it. And we actually saw the biggest jump when it was removed. So knowing that, you kind of go, that doesn't make sense. And I'm a kind of a hardcore person. I mean, I was tough disciplinarian, that's been my reputation. So for me to jump to this has to tell you, if you knew me well, that it wasn't without consequence, but it's a different kind of consequence. So let's say, because it started as fights, and this has grown into more than that. It's grown into conflict, it's grown into yelling matches, or it doesn't matter what it is now, and it's not all negative. Sometimes it's theft, it's vandalism, it can be all sorts of things that we do the process. But in the beginning, you isolate the student because there is still a consequence. They cannot be in the general population in the case of a fight or something like that. But there's a preparation process that is very extensive, and I should have Nancy doing some of this, but I've done a lot of over the last few years myself. You start by walking each party through the questions. So in the case of a fight, sometimes they're both at fault. Sometimes it's an assault. The other person's just protected. So it can be a variety of possibilities within it. But the 4 basic questions that we walk them through are, and I did the same thing with Chloe in her situation and with the other people that participated opposite her. We start by talking about, how did this situation harm you? And they really have to think through all the ways it harmed them. You know, their reputation, the time they missed class. There's just a lot of things they think through, and we help them with that. Then we talk about who else was harmed because of this. And we keep pushing. They have to identify not only that other student, but the teachers that had to get involved and could have been injured as well. They have to talk about their parents and that lost time, lost class time. They really have to think through the process. When they're done with those 2 questions, we then move into the final 2 phases, which the next question is, how are you going to provide restitution? Sometimes that's monetary. I got in a fight, I tore somebody's clothes, I paid for the clothes, I replaced them. It can be emotional restitution, so we teach them how to apologize, how to do, and that's tough. You know, having to stand in front of someone and apologize, I'd rather, you know, I had kids say all the time, just suspend me and send me home. I don't want to do this. I don't want to say what they said, but the last part of it, then the last question is, how do we now repair the harm? How do we, you know, move along? And it's not a kumbaya, hold hands, be best friends, but it is a how do we go back into the environment, respect one another, and coexist again. And as you go through that, you reteach, if something like this happens again, whether it's with this person or someone else, how do you make better choices? How do you do it differently? And that is tough. And once they've each answered them separately, then you walk through it together and you guide that conversation. We have a talking piece, we have a circle, so they're learning respect and listening. Only the person with the piece talks. The only person that can interrupt it is the person running the circle. We keep a balance of power. You have to have a balance of power, so if one of them's going to have a friend or support with them, somebody has to be there for the other student. So a very lengthy process, but it's very, very powerful. And it's as long, we could do it, and I used to joke with boys, you could send them back to class in 5 minutes, worked out, and you were fine. If you waited 5 years and brought girls back and didn't do something like this, you were still going to have a problem. And that's just the way it's been. So this process varies based on how long it takes people to get ready to have those conversations. And when they're ready, I've stopped them and said, we're not ready. And we go back and we start again. We walk through it. So once everybody's had some cool off time, they tend to be, I've never had one go poorly. Nancy, have you ever had one, once you do it at the time they're ready, had one not end well?
No, it always ends positive. It's a positive experience for everybody, although it takes some time. Everyone who sits through it ends up being very positive about the outcome.
Other questions?
At some point, and just hearing those terms, you know, discipline referrals and things like that, just brought back memories of junior high and DR and all those things. And some things have never changed. But I do remember back then, and it could have been, it was black and white to us as students. You know, hey, if you get in a fight, both of you get suspended. Period. You know, doesn't really matter how it started. Doesn't, you know, we're not here to have court to decide you're the one that started it. You're out. You're the victim. And you can go back to class. I mean, if you both are involved in a fight, you're both gone. So obviously lots changed, and it sounds like a wonderful program. But, and these circles sound very positive, but I'm sure there are cases let's say it's never 100% zero, where someone really is the instigator.
Yes.
And someone really did jump someone because they're prettier than they are, or they looked at their boyfriend, or something like that, and the other person honestly had no idea what was coming. So they both go to the circle, and is it you need to work it out, or someone at some point has to make a judgment, you were in the wrong and you were the victim. So that's easy when it's 99%, 1% or so. But what do you do when it's not that easy and you have to make a call about who's in the wrong?
It's a great question. We do still suspend. There are still times we have to. And with 100 and some cameras, I can sometimes see things that helps a ton too. But this process allows me to work the gray better. When it's black and white, cut and dried, it's very easy. I know that. We can still suspend out, sometimes doing an assault. You involve gang, you involve a lot of things. I have lines we draw, the drugs, weapons, I mean, there are lines. But there's a lot of it that's gray, and they are kids and they're learning. So in some cases, one may be isolated, the other may be not. And I will also tell you, I've learned that suspending them with me when that's possible is better than sending them home. Because in many cases, they either haven't been able to learn it at home, or that's how they survive at home. Sometimes the behaviors they're exhibiting, they're required behaviors to survive away from school. It's just not the way we want them to do it here. So they have to learn to code switch how they behave one place than the other. So it's not a simple answer, but to get to what I think you're asking me is, the consequences aren't always identical in terms of the isolation and some of that. But what makes that powerful then is when we do bring everybody together, when I've taken some of the punitive off the table, Chloe alluded to that, you get more done when that severe punishment isn't out there, because they will participate and change the behavior, because they have to face their victims. Even when we suspend out of school, we call them targets now because victims sounds helpless, but the target, because they have to face them, they do it whether we suspend them out of school or not. So understand this process is done whether I do the severe punitive or whether I do an internal isolation.
Great.
Have you seen a significant change in behavior of students who have been actually involved in some of these incidents after they've been through the restorative circles? Like, are they still perpetrators, or does that kind of calm down?
I can tell you that the year we went down to 14, there was no recidivism. And the only students in the fights except one were either sixth graders or new ties in here. Meaning the kids that have been there and been through this process and learned from this process had changed their choices. In fact, the amazing things to me there, and we're getting into it at the high school, but they don't have a whole staff trained. When I started hearing students there, middle school students telling us stories that they were at the community center or they were here, even parents trying to get kids to fight, we'd have parents turn to adults and say, there are better ways to handle this. We don't have to use our fists, we can use our words. It was just, when kids start teaching adults and you start changing community, you know you've got something that works.
I would just add to what she said in answering your question. When you've got, let's say, one student bullying another student, there's no harm done physically, it's all emotionally. But when you come to the circle and that student that's doing the bullying now understands what impact that had on someone else, then yes, that does change that person, his behavior, her behavior when it comes to bullying. And in this instance, that would have typically stopped, knowing that, hey, me bullying someone else, that's how they actually affects that other person. Otherwise, you never knew it. If I bully somebody and they just suspend me, I leave and I'm out for however long and come back. I never knew how that impacted the other person.
Any other questions?
I would say too, in situations close is similar, bullying, those things. When I punish and send a kid home, they get in trouble everywhere. It tended, often, they'd come back and pick more, attack again, and you're trying to catch it. It kind of caused a horrible cycle. That when in those first cases, because in our district's rubric, a first level of bullying that's not severe, We do typically do a warning and a teaching, but it's done with an adult. When we do that now with the target in the room and they have to face the target in that first phase, it's much more powerful. And because they haven't been punished, they're not as likely to then go after that person again.
We have time for one more question.
Just a question on face-to-face bullying versus cyberbullying. Are you dealing with, what I understand is there's a lot of cyberbullying going on these days with all of the social media stuff, and that might be a little less easy to see or observe in person or in class because it's all happening, invisibly. And so are you finding a lot of that going on, and are you dealing with cases of that?
Yes, I'd like to blow Facebook up personally and any other social media out there. I'm going to let Chloe address this a little bit because she participated in, I had a staff member who had been trained but didn't do it as a circle. And she kind of had to step in and try to make it a circle, but it was about some Facebook stuff. So I'll let her talk about, even though it wasn't done well, what that conversation did do for that situation.
Yeah, so this circle, well, not really a circle, he more tried to counsel us, but it wasn't really set up like a circle, and that is why I think it kind of failed, because the balance of power in the room wasn't as equal, because it was mostly like 6 girls versus 2 girls, and so all of their opinions were pretty much overpowering, and so that's one of the really good things about the circle, is that all the power is equal, and so everyone gets to be heard instead of just one side of it, just like yelling at the other side. And so, but yeah, so there was a problem with social media, and these girls felt like they were being bullied, and it was me and my friend that apparently, well, someone else had made an account and was attacking these girls, and they, and they were pretending to be us, and so we were trying to explain to them, and the counselor there he tried to make it a circle, but there wasn't like just one person being able to talk. It was more just everyone yelling out stuff, and but I feel like overall it really helped just people being able to hear that that we all just were girls just trying to survive high school, and that that we have to have each other's backs in order to, and they ended up finding who made the social media account, and they realized that I just wanted to make sure that they knew that it wasn't me, and so I don't know, it was just a really tough situation, but it all worked out because we all ended up just talking about it. I think talking about it really just helps instead of just holding it in, and I think that's one of the really good things about it too.
And she's being a little humble. She grabbed a box of Kleenex, so there was a talking piece to try to get people to stop yelling, because she had been through Circle the right way. The good news is for that staff member, they learned, one, you have to prep it, because when I spoke to him, they said, well, I didn't have time. I said, you don't have time not to, because when it's not prepped well, it doesn't go well. So we kind of learned from that. You learn from the bad too. In fact, Richard's first circle with that young man didn't go well. I was gone, so I stepped back in, and the teachers were willing to re-prep it and do it again, and it went really well. He also didn't share. The student went back to class and participated in a full class circle. So the teachers and the student heard how the other students felt in the room. It can be really powerful. I know we're out of time. I checked my clock, but I'll talk forever. Hopefully you'll continue to support, because it is an amazing process, and it really works very effectively, and it just feels good. And I'm going to say one more time, when we discipline without love, we're really just abusing kids. And I think our systems, well-intentioned for decades, have often abused children rather than actually changing behaviors. And I think this allows us to change behaviors the right way.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks to all of our panelists for Again, Nancy Kelly is sitting right back there. Pick on her. She came all the way over from Lawrence today, and when I say pick, I'm talking about a peace and justice type pick on Nancy. She sent me a whole long sheet here, and we don't have time to give quotes out of it, but about her experience with Boys and Girls Club and what's coming up for her. So the whole idea of restorative justice is blossoming, and we're excited about that, and we thank all of you. One really quick sentence. She said, when I asked for assistance, when I realized I had 80 participants, I asked for assistance from Topeka Center for Peace and Justice, and Carly Kidwell and Joan Wagner, both Rotarians and both with restorative practice training, agreed to help me. So it's been a collaborative effort, and we thank all of you for that.
What an incredible program. I am so grateful for all of you spending your time with us today, and we all learned so much from this. So thank you very much. It's our tradition, rather than giving a gift, I know Rebecca knows about this, but we donate a book to Ross Elementary School in honor of our speakers, and today's is Dork Diary, so we'd like you to sign that before you leave today. Next week, we will be right back here in the Manor Conference Center, and our program, My Final of the Year, will be John Hunter, and he'll talk to us about the Riverfront Project. So please stand, and we will close with the four-way test plus one. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And will it be fun?